Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the September 28th, 2023 briefing. This is the second briefing for our October the 5th, 2023 meeting. We're going to actually have the briefing session, and when it's over, we're actually going to have one discussion item. We're going to hear about Medicaid expansion and what that means. We know that that's happened and will be happening, and we want to look at the impact on the county. And there's some good news and some perhaps not so good news as that all goes along, but Chantel Robinson will be reviewing that afterwards. And I'm also going to discuss a little bit about my visit to the jail this week and talk about the locks just for a moment at the end. I think our Commissioner Bessie is joining us by phone. He had a little surgery this week, and is he on now? He's here? Good. Well, hello, Dan. We're glad you're here. He's probably not unmuting and going through that. But anyway, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our county manager to go through the briefing items, and we'll have several staff present. So,
all right, very good. Well, good afternoon, board members and staff and guests. So I will dive into the agenda items so we can finalize those for the October 5th meeting. We have two public hearing matters. The first one is a public hearing on a text amendment proposed by Planning and Development Services staff for the inclusion of graphics to the UDO to illustrate certain dimensional requirements. And so Dan Rankin is here. He reviewed it last Thursday. We typically do review those twice. I'll ask him to come up and just do kind of a quick overview and see if they've got any questions. Welcome, Mr. Rankin.
Let me go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint here. Oh. Okay. There we go. All right, there we go.
Now hit F5.
Okay, cool. All right, okay, very good. Thanks, Dudley.
All right.
Chairman Martin, members of the Board of County Commissioners, I appreciate your time. As Dudley mentioned, kind of went through this presentation last week, so I'll try to whip through it pretty quick here today. But again, my name is Dan Rankin, project planner with Planning Development Services Department, here to present a text amendment for the inclusion of new and improved graphics in the UDO to better illustrate the existing ordinance provisions for our code users and readers, and just generally to make that document more user-friendly. Background on this, back in 2018, staff was working with a consultant on the development of the UDO, and at the time, one of the consultant's main comments was to improve the UDO, that it would greatly benefit, including new and improved graphics. Initial set of 24 graphics was developed by staff and was approved in the fall of 2020. We also developed a consistent visual style because of that, and or during that process, I should say. And the one additional note, development of additional graphics was a key work program item for Planning Board during the last fiscal year. Again, like I mentioned last time, we're not altering the law or requirements in any way, shape, or form. We're just illustrating them. A total of 93 graphics are proposed within this proposed text amendment, and they utilize a 3D visual style. I'll share some examples here in a moment. We just go over this real quick. We did seek to strike a balance between having these graphics be too literal and too abstract. We thought critically about how much text we were throwing at the graphics, and a majority of these graphics are brand new to the UDO. This graphic, this is an example of the general dimensional requirements within the residential multifamily unlimited district. It's also an example of that 3D visual style staff had previously developed. This is an example of a use-specific standard graphic. This graphic shows the requirements of small home child daycare uses, which we see a fair amount of permitting activity for in our office. This is an example of a replacement graphic. Both these graphics illustrate minimum dimensions for parking requirements. Graphic on the right-hand side is the old one that's being replaced, and the one in color on the left is the new graphic in the 2D plan view. Just like the last slide, this is another example of a replacement graphic. Both of these represent the different types of yards within our UDO, within the context of that document. Again, the one on the right-hand side is the old graphic, and the one on the left-hand side is the new graphic. In summary here, staff, we do believe that The graphics included in this text amendment do substantially complete the process of illustrating the UDO. However, we also certainly recognize that it's a bit of a moving target, and as new planning and zoning concepts get introduced to the UDO, we'll do more in the future, naturally. And a summary of the recommendations with regard to this text amendment, the item was heard at the June Planning Board public hearing. There were no speakers in opposition to the item at that meeting, and the Planning Board voted unanimously in favor of recommending approval of the request. And the item was also heard at the early September City Council meeting. Just like the Planning Board meeting, there were no speakers in opposition, and the City Council did move to unanimously adopt the text amendment. So with that, I'll close, and thank you very much for your time. Certainly be happy to try to answer any questions you might have. So thanks.
Any questions for Dan? They are much better and much easier to read, so we always appreciate the improvement in the visual view of what all technical drawings mean, so thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Dan. And appreciate all your work on other projects as well. So agenda item 2, Chris Murphy is going to come up and review. It is the zoning petition for it's RS 20-S. It was zoning docket F1632. It's been reviewed in the last session and tabled. So turn it over to Chris.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Commissioners. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this as it has been briefed twice before, and the public hearing was held last Thursday afternoon. Again, this is a request to rezone from RS40 to RS20S. Following the public hearing, there was some discussion amongst the commissioners about some potential concessions from the developer related to a preservation of the existing vegetation along the perimeter, a 10-foot preservation of existing vegetation, and a condition for Lot 15, if they could have an enhanced setback along that southern property line from the adjoining property owner. The petitioners have submitted a revised plan that does include a 10-foot perimeter buffer around the entire site. There is an area along, and an agreement to the conditions. They have signed the written consent conditions. I don't think Ashley has included the signed portion of that with your materials, but it has been signed. But in the condition, it does refer to, in this area right here, there is some grading that's going to get a little bit closer to the property line than 10 feet. In that area, they are proposing to add some 10-foot green giant evergreens, and that's also part of the condition of approval. On Lot 15, they have shown the building pad located at least 20 feet away from that southern property line. And those were 2 items I know that were discussed by the commissioners at the last meeting. Again, they have agreed to that with the revised written consent conditions and the plan. We will get an updated ordinance and special use permit to the clerk that will be signed if the commissioners do decide to approve the rezoning. Just as a reminder, the public hearing was closed at the last meeting. So again, I believe that the petitioners have satisfied those 2 requests. I'm not sure if there was another request or not, but with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Chris?
The 10-foot buffer that the attorney spoke of, and since they were going to do that, then I thought that would be a reasonable condition, and I don't know that I specifically said it, but I was referring to existing vegetation, not that they would have to include more. There might be some spots that don't have existing vegetation, but what does, and I think it'd be better for all concerned. When you got a 10-foot or any perimeter like that, is the lots that are laid out, do they encompass that, or who actually is the owner?
See, that's part of the problem. That's one of the, To answer your question, the 10-foot will be on the individually owned lots. So, you know, if these 15 lots are conveyed to 15 different property owners, there will be 15 different people that have this 10-foot buffer of existing vegetation shown on their lot. That's a problem. And one of the reasons why for a planned, this is not a planned residential development, but one of the reasons why for a planned residential development, which requires a buffer yard, we changed the standards about 15 years ago to require that buffer yard to be on commonly owned property, i.e. a homeowners association, because what we were finding is whenever they were on individual lots, the individual property owner would go out and take the buffer down, and then they'd have to come back and replant it. The condition of approval that we have preserves this existing vegetation until the CO is issued. And once the CO is issued, we're kind of putting it back on the property owner because, again, it's hard for us to enforce. There's no planting requirement associated with this. It's just preservation of existing vegetation. What's going to happen is if someone goes out there, I mean, more than likely, these are going to be so far in the rear, you've got areas for septic and other stuff. They're probably not going to go clear these areas anyway. There is no requirement for it to be planted except in that one area where they're going to be grading within 10 feet of the property line. They did add a planting requirement there because they're going to be grading within 10 feet. That's the only area. Everything else is just going to be preservation of existing vegetation until the CO is issued on the house.
Well, I've raised issues then that there is not an answer for right now. And there needs to be
I think that's that's going to be a decision of the commissioners whether or not whether this adequately addresses the initial concern. If folks were developing this, if they were developing this under the RS-40, again, there wouldn't be a requirement for a buffer yard at all, and there wouldn't be a requirement for this enhanced 20-foot setback on that lot 15. They could be within 7 feet of that property line and could clear all the way to the property line. So again, it's just going to be a policy decision and a decision of the commissioners if this revised condition goes far enough. We don't want to have a condition in place that encumbers these 15 property owners that they have to go out and like replant this in the future. Again, it's meant to preserve it during the construction, and ultimately what happens once the end user gets the property is kind of a property rights issue. And you have that, and you have the enforcement difficulty of enforcing something. I mean, how do you, without a buffer yard standard, if someone goes out and removes the vegetation, what do they replant it with? Because it wasn't specified as a type 1 buffer or a type 2 buffer or anything such as that. It's preserving the existing vegetation during construction.
Well, it was not my intention to raise a question that didn't have an answer for it, so
Well, see, you've already stumped me. You were just talking about last week. You couldn't stump me.
we're going to have to, it looks like you and the attorney could come up with some answer, whether it be, I thought the condition could be enforced, but apparently not.
Well, like I said,
And-
I'm sorry.
But I wouldn't want each property owner to have something that was encumbered that they didn't know about.
Right, and ultimately, again, this project in and of itself doesn't have a homeowners association, so that's part of the problem in putting it, there is no homeowner association required unless you're doing a plan of residential development, and this is not a PRD. So again, our thought process was in working with the developer, and they agreed to the condition as written that would preserve it until they are out of the equation, but then once they're out of the equation, it kind of falls back on the property owner. So again, that was our attempt with them to come up with a solution that we felt like would meet the intent. At the end of the day, if the commissioners want something else and they don't agree to it, then the only solution at that point would be to the commissioners acquiesce and say, okay, we'll approve it as is, or again, denial, because you can't force a condition upon a property owner if they're not willing to accept it. Correct, Mr. County Attorney?
Yeah, I would put it differently. I believe what Chris has tried to work out here is a requirement of a 10-foot buffer. That requirement would continue to be there. Okay, it would fall on each individual property owner, but they would be required to keep that 10-foot buffer around the perimeter. I don't really see any other solution to that because, as Mr. Murphy indicated, there is no homeowners association, and even if there were, that would be difficult. So I think this is the best that could be proposed at this point. If the board doesn't want to approve this rezoning, you certainly don't have to.
Well, the attorney for the petitioner is the one that initially mentioned that they would be a 10-foot perimeter, and if you're talking about you're going to do certain things, then if it's special use, it can't be enforced if it's not a written condition. So originally they were thinking, well, it was okay to have a buffer, if you will, and I agree with that. I just asked for it to be put as a condition, but is there a way that the potential property owners would know this?
If I could, I want to read the condition of approval that they have signed under the written consent of conditions. It's prior to the issuance of occupancy permits. And it says a 10-foot undisturbed perimeter buffer shall be maintained as depicted on the site plan until issuance of certificates of occupancy, with existing vegetation to be preserved where feasible. Any vegetation that must be removed within the perimeter buffer to accommodate utility easements, grading, or new right-of-way shall be replaced with green giant evergreens at a planting schedule of 8 primary evergreens per 100 linear feet. So that's the condition as written, which is where I was saying that it's shown on the plan and it's a written consent to condition, but it only conditions it until the issuance of the CO.
And I'm fine with that. I mean, I think that's reasonable. So I'm in favor of leaving it, if that's the issue. Any other discussion?
Thank you for the clarity.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I think
Chris.
there's a practical matter, and the long-term practical matter, the likelihood of that 10 feet becoming an issue is probably unlikely, except in the only area I could see in the future is that area where the giant cedars, whatever, the cypress trees are going to go there. I could see that could be an area in the future, but the rest probably is not going to be an issue. Good.
All right, very good. All right, we have 4 special resolutions. Item 3 is a resolution recognizing October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and recognizing the efforts of Bridges to Hope Family Justice Center in Forsyth County, which is up and running and has been for a while. So we will have that presentation next Thursday and hear from Dewana on her progress. Item 4 is a resolution declaring the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners' intent to close the last 225 feet of SR 1304, which is Plymouth Road, and calling for a date for the public hearing on the matter. And Shelley Bowen with Matt Forsyth will come up and review. Hey, Shelley.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So on September 6th, we received a notice of petition to close the last 225 feet of State Route 1304 Plymouth Road. The petitioner was Lasara Land LLC. So I'm going to provide a little bit of overview of the property and kind of what's going on in this area and how this area is being developed. As you'll see here in the kind of orangish yellow, this is unincorporated territory. The blue is Louisville. This red line is the last 225 feet of Plemons Road. On either side, the owners are Thomas Hall and Jeffrey Ferner, should I say. He's actually the second petitioner, so he went in with Lasara LLC to petition to have this closed. You'll see on this next slide that there is actually an intent to have all of this area annexed up until that last 225 feet. Mr. Hall's land will actually be split. What was originally 5 acres of property between these two areas, he'll be left with like 1.7-ish acres that are owned by him, and the rest will become part of the Lakes at Lasara property. So this is just an overview of the lake at Lasara. The next slide will go into a lot more detail. I just wanted to give you guys this red little box to show you how this is just a piece of the overall development. Okay, so what is actually planned currently, and the reason that they want to abandon the last 225 feet of Plemons Road is there's going to be 5 actually on this side and a few other here, but 5 main parcels right here added. And then the actual access for these last 2 parcels will come from Lasara Lodge Road over here. So they wouldn't come in through Plemons Road. They would come in and hit their driveway here so that they're no longer going across Mr. Hall's or Mr. Ferner's land to access their property. So to kind of an overview, NCDOT investigated the request and said that it meets state requirements for abandonment. And like I said before, Lasara Land LLC and the property owner, Jeffrey Ferner, petitioned NCDOT to just abandon that last 225 feet. Here's that petition. And then here is our letter of notice from NCDOT. A copy of the resolution would be sent to the remaining property owners there's 14 others that are along Plemons Road. And then, of course, a sign, as is usual, will be posted. But there was concluded that no negative impact would be made of closing just that last 225 feet to allow this development to access from a different area. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Shaylee?
Thank you. All right, thanks, Shaylee. Agenda item 5 is a resolution redesignating the site of the Forsyth County Courthouse. The attorney and the clerk have been working together to make sure we meet that statutory requirement. Gordon, do you want to, pretty simple, got to say where your courthouse is going to be, right?
Yeah, I appreciate Ashley's work on this. Basically, it's a statutory requirement that we have to give proper notice to the community that the courthouse is moving.
Okay. And so I believe this says that on Monday, October 23rd, the courthouse will magically move from where it is to where it's going. So we're excited about that. Any questions on that? All right. Agenda item 6 is a resolution authorizing the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office to sell retiring canines to their handlers pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes as listed there. Also a resolution authorizing the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office to sell service weapons and provide badges to retiring officers, to survivors of officers killed in the line of duty. Randy.
Good afternoon. The attached resolutions would allow the sheriff and the sheriff's office to declare retired canines to be surplus property and to sell them to their handlers for $1, as well as allow deputies in retiring in good standing to retain their service weapon for $1. These resolutions are consistent with long-standing law enforcement customs and traditions, as well as the North Carolina General Statutes, Chapter 20, 153A, and 160A. And we wanted to mention that in the case of retiring canines that have advanced age or other medical issues, the handler in taking ownership of the canine also agrees in writing to assume financial responsibilities associated with further veterinary care. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yep.
Any questions for Randy?
Yeah. I think we'd been bringing these to the board in the past, kind of one-off, and so this just lets the sheriff's office do that moving forward prospectively. So I think it's a good deal. Item 7 are minutes, and those will be
I plan to get them out tomorrow.
Okay, so be on the lookout for those, and so thank you, Ashley. Agenda item 8, we've got some budget and finance matters. Item 8 is an amendment to the fiscal year '24 budget. It appropriates $1,337,137 from North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. Nicole Pretty is going to come up and review this.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a budget ordinance amendment to create an appropriation for the Health Department that is arising from funds coming from North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services related to COVID. The request is to appropriate the little over $1.3 million to be used to remove barriers to accessing vaccines, increase vaccine confidence, coordinate COVID-19 vaccine services, and expand COVID-19 vaccination programs. Plans for these funds will be used to fund the temporary COVID staff that is currently in place. That's between 10 and 12 employees, temporary employees, and also to purchase needed supplies and training to assist with vaccine delivery. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions? Nicole?
The only question that I would have is, are we still providing COVID vaccinations for free?
Yes.
We are. Okay, fair
Yes.
enough. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the elephant in the room is when they're going to show up and be ready for to distribute, I guess.
Yeah, we're planning for October 1st.
Okay.
I do not have that information if we've actually received them as of today.
But soon, so very good.
The COVID boosters are starting on Monday. COVID boosters and flu shots for the community for free.
Awesome. Okay, very good. Thank you. Are there appointments required, or is that a show up and? She's probably getting the email as we speak to answer that question, but.
So this is the time that we need our marketing person, right? Because constituents need to know.
Yeah,
Okay.
Todd Luck actually sent out an email. There's no appointments required.
Okay, great. Yeah, and this is like breaking news, so it's happening.
Yeah, and it has been posted on the social media, and information's going out, but it begins October 2nd, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. No appointment is needed and no cost to the community.
My apologies. Thank you. I
Great,
appreciate it.
very good.
I
All right,
just
thank
didn't see
you.
it.
Item 9 is also Nicole's. It's a budget amendment. I'll just turn it over to you, Dan.
Yes, this is another budget amendment for the Health Department coming from North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services in regards to an agreement addenda 914 addressing lead in water and lead-based paint in public schools and child care facilities. This is, the Health Department will receive $35,194 to be used to conduct testing and remediation for lead in water and inspection of remediation for lead-based paint and asbestos in all North Carolina public schools and licensed child care facilities.
Is this kind of an annual thing? I mean, because essentially lead paint in schools have been tested, I mean, that's started 25 years ago.
Long time ago, yeah.
So is there, I'm having a little hard time even understanding the statewide distribution of money for that purpose when most of that's kind of done, I would think.
Yeah, there was a Senate bill passed that appropriated $150 million in funds from the from American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 that came to the state to establish programs for the detection and remediation of lead and asbestos in public
Okay, so
school
it does
units.
include remediation.
Yes.
Which that makes
Yes.
a lot more sense, because
Yep.
a lot has been probably, if you will, sort of encapsulated by painting over and doing some things. This would actually allow taking it off, which is way, way, way more expensive.
Right.
So I'm sure there's some of that available.
Yes.
That's actually a lot of money, for a fair amount,
Yeah.
to take that on, even statewide. That's good.
Very good. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Item 10 is a budget ordinance amendment. It increases special appropriation for Harry Veterans Community Outreach Services Incorporated. Kyle Wolf's going to review this.
During the FY24 budget workshop, the board considered several alternate service level requests and requests for what we call special appropriations to various community organizations. And during those budget workshops, the board approved $75,000 for Harry Veterans. And those funds are in the '24 budget, but in the appendix of the budget ordinance, they have the wrong amount listed. And so we can't encumber the contract because of that wrong amount listed. So this is really just kind of a clerical thing. There's no financial impact because, again, the funds were already approved as part of the budget. We're just cleaning up the appendix.
Just a typo in the addendum part of the budget. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right, very good. Item 11 is also Kyle's. I'll turn it over to you, Kyle.
Sure. And so back in April, the board authorized our Environmental Assistance and Protection Department to submit an application for a Clean Air Act grant in the amount of $47,300, and the county has received a notification of award of $52,000.19, and so we need to appropriate those funds. They'll be used to purchase air pollution monitoring equipment as well as go towards an electrical engineering study for the design of our electrical vehicle charging system in the county. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, stay right there in item 13, since you're up for that.
Which one is 13? Is that the?
It's the EdLab,
Right, okay.
or EdTap.
Okay. We've received notice to apply for the Rural Operating Assistance Program grant in the amount of $163,961. So this is something that we apply for on an annual basis. It's for our Elderly and Disabled Transportation Assistance Program and the Employment Transportation Assistance Program. And so this is really just, we're asking for permission to apply for these funds, and then we'll come back and appropriate them once we receive the notification. Do this kind of review. Okay.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Agenda item 12 is a resolution authorizing acceptance of a grant from the Winston-Salem Foundation, and Ms. Kimberly Bussey with Budget and Management will review.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a grant from the Winston-Salem Foundation to Cooperative Extension for the expansion of community gardens in Forsyth County, plus a budget ordinance amendment to appropriate the dollars. This is for $8,000 to build social capital by expanding community gardens, and they will be science-based learning spaces that provide opportunities for leadership, community development, and experimental learning. The FY24 budget did include $4,000 for this grant, but they're requesting permission to appropriate the full $8,000, so this does appropriate the additional $4,000, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
Good stuff. Thank you, Kimberly. We also have several contractual matters. Item 14 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract with EBSCO Publishing Incorporated to provide library staff and customers access to online database resources. And Ms. Yolanda Bolden with the library system is going to come up and review. And while you're there, item 15 is also yours, so I'll let you jump into that one.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Forsyth County Public Library seeks to renew a contract with EBSCO Publishing Incorporated to continue providing library staff and customers with access to and the use of the following online database resources: Novelist Select, a patron materials preference algorithm, MyHeritage, a genealogy database, and Library Aware, a marketing tool in publishing and communication applications, for an annual cost not to exceed $67,190. A planned expenditure covered by allocated funds in the library's 2023 and 2024 fiscal year budget. Any questions?
Questions for Yolanda? Thank you.
Item 15.
Okay. The next item, excuse me, is we did receive ARPA funding to purchase a Streamlab mobile makerspace to provide educational programs and training focused on science, technology, reading, engineering, art, mathematics, and language to disappropriation impacted communities. The mobile will house equipment that will support makerspace activities, along with a circulating collection of books and materials that will include fiction and nonfiction titles for learning, discovery, and reading enjoyment. The following bids were received. We did receive 4 bids from vendors. Don Brown Bus Sales came in with the lowest responsive bid of $326,995 with add-on of $76,175 for a total price of $403,170. Any questions?
Questions for Yolanda? It sounds like we're not expecting to get all those add-ons included, which was great, and the prices were, I was glad your presentation and the summary actually showed
What they
what the
were.
others bidders bid on the extra items.
Yes.
Because I was beginning to think, wow, that's a lot of extra items.
Yes.
How did that play out between the bidders? So that was very helpful, but
Okay.
I think that turned out well.
Okay.
So, congratulations.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Yolanda. Item 16 is a resolution approving a contract for continued services for the FC Connect solution. As you know, we've been on that journey here for a while, and Chantel has served as very ably as our chair of the steering committee and really handled the business side matters of that. And so as that project's developed, I'll let her review this item.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and good afternoon, Commissioners. The agenda item before you is requesting approval of a contract with Cherry Beckert LLC in an amount not to exceed $99,430 to assist the county with our enterprise software solution through Oracle, which we have branded FC Connect. The county went live with the finance portion of the system almost a year ago and the human resources portion of the system in May. We are in the process of implementing the budget module and a health and safety module, both of which should be live in January. As we continue to expand on the capabilities of the finance and HR portions of the system, we are in need of subject matter experts to assist our team with manpower and completing some functionalities. We do have funds available in the existing project budget to cover the cost of the contract, and no additional county funds are needed. I'm happy to answer any questions.
When this year is over, do we assume that we will be on our own?
We are working very hard to be on our own. We are sending our teams to Oracle University to really train them up. We are really hoping to be self-sufficient. That is our goal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chantel. Randy Hunsucker is going to come up and review items 17 and 18, both sheriff matters. Item 17 is the mutual aid agreement between Winston-Salem Town of Kernersville and regarding the traffic safety program, and then also the Fuchsia's contract. So turn it over to Randy for both.
Thanks, Dudley. The City of Winston-Salem has received notification of award from NCDOT to continue the DWI task force for a 14th year. It's staffed by 3 officers and a sergeant for the City of Winston-Salem and a deputy and 1 officer in Kernersville. The task force is responsible for enhanced enforcement of laws prohibiting driving while intoxicated, and they operate throughout Forsyth County. The attached interlocal agreement outlines the responsibilities of all 3 governments regarding the grant funds, while the mutual assistance agreement allows the members to operate anywhere in the county outside their normal jurisdiction. The Sheriff's Office budget has appropriated funds for the required payment of $68,779, and no additional funds are being requested. The grant covers a 1-year term that begins October 1st. Be happy to answer any questions about that.
Questions for Randy?
All right, thanks, Randy.
Thank you.
Item 18.
And then the Arctic, as you know, provides advanced detection, increased situational awareness, rapid communication, efficient responses to crime in Forsyth County, and information gathered through Arctic is analyzed and translated into efficient and effective operational intelligence that protects deputies and the community in a proactive way. Central to Arctic, the Real-Time Intelligence Center's operation is the operating platform. So the enterprise solution will allow for a common operating platform which does not require a complete replacement of video cameras, recorders, or servers, or network equipment at the video transmitting locations that are located throughout Forsyth County that the Sheriff's Office has access to, including some that we have. It operates with up to 1,500 video points saved on a cloud-based solution and up to 10 terabytes of storage. And after due advertisement, bids were received and publicly opened by City County Purchasing on September 5th, and we received 1 responsive bid, and this is for a 5-year agreement at $665,000 with Fuchsia's LLC, and that is the current service provider. So the attached resolution awards a contract to Fusus in an amount not to exceed $115,000 for this fiscal year, $125,000 for next fiscal year, $135,000 for FY26, and $145,000 for both FY27 and FY28. And the cost is being funded by current and projected future JAG grant funds, and no general fund dollars are being requested. And I want to mention that the first $115,000 is being paid for already awarded grants, 2020, 21, and 22. So we're about a year ahead on that, so we're okay on cash flow. The Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance has provided guidance in writing that the process and the award satisfies the federal purchasing guidelines. And I also have with me here today Will Brazier, who works in Arctic. In case there's any questions about Arctic or this item, we'll be happy to help you.
I've just got a bigger picture question. I read your materials, and it was a little too detailed, a little too technical side for me. But basically, I'm looking at it. Is this replacing what we're currently? Is it just continuing what we currently have with some enhancements, or is it something? Is this a totally new thing?
It only continues what we currently have.
That's what I thought. Just continuing what we have with, and it's kind of like a renewal thing for 5 years.
Yes, sir.
And the second curiosity question is, and this, I probably should know this, but do our drone cameras are they tying into this system too? Yes, they do, so.
I'll let Will Brazier tackle that one.
All right.
Good afternoon. Could you repeat the question for me?
No, I was just talking about, do the drone cameras on our drone fleet, if you will, tie into this system, their cameras, so that they are all into this same system?
They do, as well with our license plate readers and all the cameras that we have access to. Yes, and there's many other functions that this program has that we're currently exploring.
And when Randy mentioned, and I read and I think of the 1,500 deal, that's like 1,500 camera points. You said points of video something.
That's how many we could view at a time. We actually have about access to 8,500 at this current moment, but we can access up to 1,500 at any one moment.
Oh, at any one time?
Yes.
And there are 8,500?
We have access to approximately 8,500 throughout the county, whether it be Fuchsia's allocated cameras, flock cameras, private residences that allow us access to their cameras.
And by the way, there's another curiosity question. The City of Winston-Salem system, the Kernersville system, all three, are they accessing the same cameras?
Winston-Salem's does, and we share accessibility with Winston-Salem, Kernersville. We have camera access in Kernersville, but they operate on a different platform. I don't know that they use Fuchsia's.
I thought they did, but I don't know that. I just know they have what they refer to as like a real time, which I assume was Fuchsia's stuff, is what I.
Yep, they do. They do have one. I'm not exactly sure which platform that they're utilizing, but I do know for a fact we in Winston-Salem use the same, and we share everything.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very good. We have one property matter. Item 19 is a resolution declaring certain county-owned buildings located at 3290 and 3230 North Liberty Street surplus, authorizing their demolition. I'll turn it over to Kirby to talk about this project. I think James Anderson may be helping a little bit.
I may have done that wrong. I apologize. I'll go ahead and start. You think at some point I'd get this figured out, and I apologize. It's a work in progress. Okay. If it's all right, I'll just start talking.
You don't want to do it?
No, I do. I just thought I would start talking.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman of the Board. Appreciate your time today. You'll recall that in 2021, the board authorized the sale of the Lansing Drive site. And so that's, of course, on the other side of the airport. It's where the school system has their maintenance operations. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't like it.
It's okay.
It's where they have their maintenance operations. We've been working with the school system since that time to relocate those folks to replacement sites. The board's done a couple of different things in the course of executing that project. You've acquired the 3810 North Liberty Street property, which is the old Piedmont Advantage Credit Union. That's where the offices from Lansing Drive will go. You've authorized an addition to our fleet facility, which is where the automotive services and ground services will go. The school system will be moving some folks to the Indiana site. And really the last piece of the puzzle here is sort of their parking, their heavy equipment, and their construction supply needs. I think in recognition of that, the board acquired the CEMEX property earlier this year. It appears to be an ideal site to house those things, parking, storing heavy equipment, and construction supplies. More than the school system function, there are a couple of benefits of redevelopment I think the board saw in acquiring that property. That's curing a blight on North Liberty Street. It's promoting economic development around the airport. It's addressing the property's environmental condition. And it really keeps industrial equipment and commercial uses in an area that you would expect to see that type of thing. As an overview of that, this is the property location. It's highlighted in orange. You can see the Smith Reynolds Airport there. The county's grounds maintenance facility is to the north. It directly borders the site. Right above that is our automotive services facility, our warehouse. And you skip 3 properties up, and here's the old Piedmont Advantage Credit Union. So we're really centralizing operations there on North Liberty Street. Zooming in on the site, it's 3.7 acres in size, zone GI, so we didn't have to rezone the property. It has 3 buildings between them all. They total roughly 19,000 square feet. We think there's 31,000 square feet of paved area under there. It's pretty overgrown. It's hard to tell, but we're pretty sure there's a fair amount of pavement under there. And limited landscaping unless you count the stuff that's sort of growing there now. And we'll give some titles to these buildings. This is the canopy storage area. That's the open building. This is sort of the main building on the site. It's the processor kiln building. These are the silos here, and we're calling this the southern building. Just some quick pictures here. My back is to grounds maintenance. That's the canopy area and the kiln building. Turning around, just another view of the canopy area. This is inside the kiln building, and the board will recall that we got a better price for the property because the seller chose to leave sort of their stuff, if you will, behind. And so we got a discount on the property, which is great. This is on the other side of the kiln building, looking back towards grounds maintenance, the silos to the left. Turning around, this is the southern building here, but this is the creek that runs through the property. This picture was taken early last spring, and you can see all this stuff is starting to wake up now. It's in full bloom right now if you drive by and see it. And this is the inside of the southern building. We think it's an old truck wash type of building where they maybe did some maintenance inside there. So when you look at redeveloping that site, we step back and say, we know that the site is contaminated due to its previous use. In recognition of that, I think the board really planned a very passive use for the property, which is really that open air parking and storage. Again, those are passive uses. They don't involve a lot of construction activity, and we do not plan to put people on site. So really what that means is we're not going to be digging in the dirt there, which is good. It really lessens the potential remediation we may have to do on the site. We went through a pretty exhaustive engineering evaluation of the structures there, and you'll recall when we were acquiring it, I told you that we really would love to reuse some of these buildings. When we really got in there with the folks that do this type of stuff, and they looked at them, they said they think they're really beyond repair, unfortunately, and that's an unfortunate thing. We really wanted to look at the canopy storage area and the truck wash building. But it looks like it would just be cost prohibitive to go and bring those things back to life. So I think our recommendation is to demolish everything that's there. All of those improvements in the tanks, clear them out, clear the vegetation from the site, and that really accomplishes or gets it to the point that we can redevelop it and sort of actualize our intended use there. Put some new fencing up so it's aesthetically pleasing as you drive down the road, and then patch and pave if we need it. This is conceptually sort of what the site would look like after that. The dotted orange line is a potential retaining wall that we'd put at the back. That's looking like it'd be less necessary as we go along. There's a blue dotted line here that would be our new fencing area. Even though it's one property, it really acts as two because you have a creek running through the middle. It's not a natural creek. It's really a drainage type of thing that comes out of a culvert. The shaded areas are really where it shows what we would use that area for. We would enlarge grounds maintenance by about half an acre. This is the real selling point here of the school system, sort of parking and storage area. It's about an acre and a half. You know, if you think you can get roughly 150 parking spaces on an acre, that's a big area that we can do something with. Then that encompasses the canopy area in the Kiln building. And on the southern portion here is where we would propose to relocate the sheriff's office seizure lot that's down on Fairchild right now. From my conversations with them, they see that as real positive. And you know, if you move that up there on the North Liberty Street, it allows you then to use the Fairchild area really for aeronautical use, which I think is kind of the board's intent for that area. And I'll just quickly say...
Before you leave
Yes,
that,
sir.
is not that, are you keeping that build, it says for the sheriff's
Oh,
office
yeah,
storage
you know,
building,
I
is that a new storage building, or is that going to be, I thought you were going to tear it down, the old one?
You're right. So I drew this before we completed our engineering evaluation. That was, I apologize, I should have noted that. That was our intended use there, is to have some secure inside type of storage. After we studied it more, we feel like it needs to come down as well. Saying that, though, we are working with the Brownfields program to plan our sampling where we would actually drill and sample down to 2 feet in the slabs. And the reason we would do that is if we wanted to come back in the future and build on the site, which right now we don't intend to, but maybe we would in 15 years, it actually gives us a baseline environmental sample that will make them more likely to approve improvements in the future, which is a good thing. So we're really trying to position ourselves so the board has some flexibility in the future with how you use the site. That's the sheriff office piece that we've got to solve because they do have some inside storage on Fairchild. Maybe that would not be here. You know, we'd have outdoor storage. We got to figure out the indoor piece. In terms of timeline, the county's lease of the Lansing Drive property expires June of next year. That is I can tell you that's a non-negotiable date. They're ready to expand now. The hot sauce business is booming, and the Garner's ready to move on with phase 2 at Lansing. So the school system knows they need to be out prior to that date. The board's agreement with the school says they will actually need to be out by May, which is really what we're targeting, the opening of the CMEX property. If we can have it cleared, secured, and ready to use by May of next year, I think we're going to be in a good position to really put a bookend on the co-location project. So our desire is to move forward with demolition over the next 3 months. With fencing to follow, that would probably come back to you in a separate agreement. So this is an A and B item. That's sort of my first part. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board has, and I'll turn it over to our construction staff to brief the demolition contract.
Well, my only question really gets at that is how much paving, whether to resurface that beat up. I mean, the picture just that you have of that, I guess it was concrete originally, it's just all cracked up. I'm just trying to think of it, what it's going to wear and tear in the future. And I mean, paving's not cheap, but I'm not so sure this is not the time to go ahead and pave it over. I mean, if you go back to that picture before you leave that.
This one? Oh,
no. The one that shows the real lot. I mean, that's what you're talking about, only patching, correct?
Well, I mean, we would love to not patch it and just use it really as is right now. I mean, really from a timeline perspective, it's got vegetation that's growing up through it, and yeah, there's some potholes and it's cracked in places. Our intent was to go ahead and start using it and then really evaluate it and build it into our capital plan moving forward, should it need it.
So you see no difficulty with parking on that, and other stuff's not growing back out another year from now.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully the demolition contract involves really removing the vegetation as well. So if there were...
I got that, but vegetation grows back.
It does. Luckily, grounds maintenance is right next door, and we're hoping they can control that for us. But you're right. I mean, there is something that we need to go through. I mean, I think our idea, and I'll let construction talk about this a little bit more, was to really expose the surface and see what we're dealing with there. I think the primary concern would really be on the southern end where the seizure lot would be. That looks like it'd probably be in the worst shape. Cement trucks have been using that upper portion. Now they're a little bit bigger than what we'd be parking there, but they have been using it. We're hoping we can clean it up, cut the buildings off at the footings, and so it would be level with the ground. and just use it with minimal cost. That being said, the board did transfer some contingency funds from economic development into this project that we're holding should some repair work be needed there.
We're still in good shape budget-wise, though, aren't we?
Yeah. Construction will talk about the demo contract. These buildings did have asbestos in them. I think you saw my initial estimate when we put this together was around $130,000 for demolition. The contract that'll come in is, $39-some thousand more than that, and that's the asbestos removal. And so, that came in a little bit higher. I think when all is said and done, we're going to have $100,000 to $125,000 still in the project that we're holding as contingency for pavement, but also for environmental testing. We have not finalized a management plan with the Brownfields program yet. We met with them. They were excited about the project. They called it a textbook Brownfields, which I took to be flattering. I think that was good. But I think what they mean is that, it's a passive use. We don't have people there, so they like the concrete covering there. They don't want us to dig it up because then that opens up the ground. And so they're in favor of it. They like the additional testing we'll do. It doesn't mean they wouldn't come back with some additional environmental requirement in the future. So we're trying to be judicious with those funds.
So, and this may come up in part two, but I saw in that picture, it looks like a big kiln, like you said, the kiln. It's a huge one, but it looks fairly new. It looks like it could be. I'm assuming the contractor's getting the value of the salvage because there's steel. I saw steel pieces in that. Looked like as well as. You got that picture too. You just go to that picture.
Yes, sir. This one.
Yes, isn't that green thing a big kiln sitting there?
It's a big old thing. I'm not sure what it is.
I'm pretty sure it's a kiln, and then it looks like I'm not. Well, yeah, there's some metal in there.
Yeah, it's got that, and it's got a lot of other stuff like that there. So I wrote the item in the way that allowed the contractor to do that because I think you're right. I think that the salvage value was contemplated in the cost, and hopefully brought that down.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, I'll turn it over to John Nance. John is our design and construction technician. He's relatively new to the county, although not that new. But I thought I'd introduce him to you. He's on James Anderson's staff. He comes to us with 25 years of construction and estimating experience. I'll let him sort of brief the actual demolition contract here. And of course, we're both available if you have any questions.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. As Kirby described, the construction management team was tasked with going out and finding demolition contractors. We had an informal bid process, and at the end of the bidding process, we received 3 bids as follows. Double D Construction Services turned in a bid of $169,549.18. D.H. Griffin Wrecking Company provided a bid for $197,000 even, and EME Industrial Services provided a bid of $391,838. With that information, construction management team recommends that we engage Double D Construction, who is a local MWBE firm, and issue them a contract for the $169,549.18. And I'll be happy to answer as many questions as I can possibly answer.
Question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Got it.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, John. All right, so the last couple of items, you got appointments to the Forsyth County Health and Human Services Board. They came back from that board in terms of just presenting them to you.
Yeah, were we going to get recommendations from them? I thought that was.
Yes, we meet next Wednesday. So next Wednesday, the Health and Human Services Board will make their votes for recommendations, and then you all will vote on their recommendation next Thursday.
Okay. Are we going to get an email with that information, the recommendations, before we get to the meeting?
Absolutely. I will send it to Ashley, Ms. Matthews, as soon as our board meeting is over. We meet at 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, October 4th.
Okay.
Okay, so that I'm clear, I have a vacancy report where it's showing some incumbents wishing to serve, and then citizens wishing to serve. So those citizens wishing to serve is the recommendation that we're waiting for the Health and Human Services Board.
The Health and Human Services Board will make recommendations for all 3 vacancies. But there's one incumbent who is not wishing to return, and that is Ms. Claudette Weston for the at-large seat, and we will certainly miss her greatly.
Okay. She's not listed on here, but that's okay. That's fine. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Any other questions on that? All right, to wrap it up, item 21, you got a resolution approving refunds by the tax assessor in collective amount of $1,076.15. And then reports, you got the July and August 2023 contribution-based benefit cap report. Mr. Chairman, that is all we have for the October 5th meeting.
Medicaid expansion.
All right.
Okay, good afternoon again, Commissioners. So great news for our community. With the passage of the state budget, Medicaid expansion was approved to go live on December 1st, 2023. And so we thought it would be helpful to provide a brief update on what Medicaid expansion is and what it means to Forsyth County. So I have with me Social Services Division Director for Medicaid Services, Ms. Marissa Adams, and Deputy Director Krista Smith, who will provide an update. Director Christine Dowdell is also here if you have any questions. So I will turn it over to the team.
Thank you, Chantel. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Afternoon.
So we are super excited and elated with the passing of Medicaid expansion. It means so much for our community and those who have not had access to care for so many years. So what is Medicaid expansion? It gives coverage to over 600,000 North Carolinians from the ages of 19 to 64. It is effective December 1st of 2023. There are no premiums, and the highest copay should be no more than $4. The impact to Forsyth County, we have approximately 112,000 residents that receive Medicaid, and it's anticipated an additional 45 residents to be eligible through expansion. 45,000. What does Medicaid coverage cover? Primary care services, inpatient and outpatient services, maternity and postpartum care, vision, hearing, prescription, behavioral health, which is a big win for us because we have so many individuals in our community that are in need of those services, and now they have access to that. Preventive and wellness services, as well as devices and therapies. Who's eligible? That's the biggest key, what everybody wants to know. You have to be a U.S. citizen or lawfully permanent resident. You have to be ages 19 through 64 for this new expansion coverage, which will be labeled MXP. The household income is 133% of the federal income poverty limit. So a single individual would need to make less than $20,000 a year to receive coverage. How do you apply for Medicaid? Same way as we've always applied, online through ePass, by mail, by phone, and coming to visit us at 741 North Highland Avenue. Applications could take up to 45 days to process. However, they are processed in a quicker manner if all information is present when the applicant comes in the building. I like to encourage a one-touch. If they have everything, make sure you get them approved within that day of that visit. Individuals already receiving family planning are going to automatically roll over to full coverage on December 1. We're crossing our fingers. That's what the state has said to us, but we're going to cross our fingers on that. Approximately 15,000 of those individuals, of that 112,000, already received family planning. So I'm going to turn it over to Krista to talk about cost and staffing impact.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So as you may remember, at the end of August, Ms. Robinson briefed before you our request to go ahead and start hiring some staff because there is some training, lead time, as well as advertising. So we are in the process of hiring 11 staff now. We utilized some upfront money that was provided to us from DHHS prior to the budget passing, and that upfront money will cover 75% of the costs associated with hiring and training those 11 staff. We did have to request a $200,000 appropriation from county funds to cover the 25% remaining. Due to the anticipated workload, Social Services is requesting to hire an additional 22 staff and purchase equipment for those staff. We anticipate receiving additional funds from DHHS to assist with covering the cost of hiring additional staff, but currently that amount is unknown. We haven't gotten any of our funding authorizations out of the budget passing yet. If the state does not cover the full cost of expansion, which I know is what's been communicated so far, so in the worst case scenario, based on last year's cost model, the annualized state reimbursement for those positions would be approximately $1 million with a county cost of $440,000.
Next steps. I have already started recruiting and hiring for the leadership positions, as well as the 11 positions that were approved in the resolution in late August. We plan to have many strategies to communicate to residents, some being community outreach events, town halls, some media and marketing, as well as some in-service education to county staff. So we're really working hard to get the word out so it won't be a surprise and such a shock to our staff and to our fellow county coworkers. Any questions?
I have a couple. The first of all, give me your speculation on the December 1st date. Do you think it'll really be ready by December the 1st?
Yes.
I mean, because I've watched this with the behavioral health group with the Medicaid, the transition deal, and it has been postponed at least 4 times. And I mean, it's now 2 years late. It's already like back to June. I mean, so I realize that's a little different, but quite frankly, there's a lot of folks, and I realize the process appears to be the same. So, I mean, as it is, for current Medicaid folks, seems like the expansion is not different in terms of the paperwork and application. But, I mean, that's 2 months away is what we're talking about.
It is.
And it seems to me when you make an effort to advertise something, when it doesn't happen and it gets pushed back, then I think you lose people. I mean, I think then it's a re-advertising and people are, it's just a limbo, a bad system. And so you really think it's going to be ready?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Martin, I understand your angst. However, the state has already issued notification to those individuals that are receiving family planning Medicaid that it will switch to full coverage starting December 1. There is already policy and education going on about the new coverage program for our staff. It's a matter of programming in NC-FAST, and they have done that with other programs before.
NC-FAST does not have a great reputation. Let's just put that in. Let's just say that out up front. So something new and different being into NC-FAST, that just tells me it will not be ready by December the 1st. I mean, if that's a part of it. Sorry, I hate to be a little skeptical, but that's a pretty mild word for what I am on this.
I understand.
I do have a second question, though. Mm-hmm. In the staffing determination parts, does NCDHHS have a recommended staffing level based on X number of, like, recipients, for example?
Actually, we had the opportunity to participate with the state for an Accenture project. They also, in that participation, they did send us some recommendations, and we are working well below capacity.
Below their recommendations.
Below their recommendations, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, we need they just looked at recertifications, the recertification function. In one area, it's recommended that I need 15 additional workers. In the Magi area and in adult Medicaid area, it's recommended that I need 5 more.
And the 11 that we're trying to hire now, are they a part of the overall 22, or is it 22 beyond 11? I'm trying to get the number of people we're talking about here. The early hiring, the parts that we've already authorized, let's go and jump ahead, and there's some money, state money. That's for 11 positions, right?
That was the, what was in the resolution.
All right.
11.
Right.
This is 22 additional more.
On top of the 11?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Let's get, any other questions? I apologize for monopolizing the time.
Thank you. We're here if you need us.
I have a last discussion item. Thank you. I see you're looking at me. I did have a very informative visit to the jail last Monday afternoon, and I had a great tour. Had 3 captains, and I think I've got everybody's name right: Captains Witt, Ferguson, and Marshall, and also a lady. I think I got her first name. I think it's Benita, but I think I missed the last name. But anyway, had a very good informative tour. We actually visited 2 of the control tower issues, the control room areas, as well as one of the areas in the cell blocks that actually had lock refurbishments. A lot of commissioners had seen last week just a demonstration of how the lock mechanism works. It was brought over in our conference room and had a chance to look at it, and certainly heard the anecdotal stories. And obviously the devil's in a lot of details. And even in the cell block that all of the cells and the locks had been refurbished on one floor, when you go to the control room area, it still shows 3 of them not locked, although they are locked. But the issue is with a wiring mechanism on the cell door itself that goes into an electrical box above, that serves 2 floors. And if chips go out, and each one, there's a chip apparently that controls each lock, that's a part of each lock. So we have replaced all that we could, but now there's a back order for the chips for that. So that's a wiring issue. So all of these, I mean, obviously it reflects age, with the age of the equipment. So I think some kind of plan to, I think, and then of course the other side is, if something is new, will it solve this problem with something new? And at least our folks have actually experimented with one somewhat, and I think we can do a good RFP for that. I hope we can, and actually come up with a way to have something. And actually, I think the RFP should include an opportunity to have a cell that's in use actually using it to see if it works, and I kind of let people see kind of how it serves. Because the more bells and whistles, there are also more things that can go wrong. So in any case, it was good. We also appreciate the, as I thought it was a very good discussion with particularly with the 3 captains, and we talked about a few other issues besides locks, which was very good. So I thought it was a great meeting. I appreciate their time, and I will say I think they genuinely appreciate folks coming over and looking at what they're doing. And I'll make one other just general comment. I've probably been in the jail 2 other times, and one was actually after it was fairly new, and back in the late 90s. And I was impressed at how well actually the jail is maintained. I mean, everything from the floors to the walls, the paints, I mean, the whole business I thought looked, actually considering the use that it has had in that nearly 30-year period, It's actually holding up very well. So obviously a solid building and it's been well maintained and a lot of people have worked hard on that. So that just sort of jumped out at me, visiting and that part. So in any case, enough said on that, except I hope, and I think I've talked to county manager some, and he may want to comment a little bit about a possible at least source of money that could help some of that. And as we move
That's
forward.
what I was wanting to hear. Okay,
Thank you.
wonderful.
Yeah, so, I think we fully hear kind of a green light on the lock side of things, and so that work will get the administrative work done to get that to you. We are fortunate, if you just look at the criminal justice system, we're finishing out our courthouse. There are some, we do believe that project's going to come in under budget, so my recommendation will be to use those funds as kind of the funding source for this, and so as we're closing that out, we'll present that to you, but I don't think financially it's going to be, from a one-time perspective, I think we'll be okay.
Well, that's not what I was wanting to hear. I thought that Chairman Martin was going to rescind his thoughts in terms of adding an additional 1% to our detention officers, but I guess that's not where he was going.
Did I say anything about, did I have any conversation about salary here? I don't think that ended in, that was a part of that discussion. I know you are, okay. That's good.
Thank you.
All right, anything else for the good of the order? I think we have a motion to adjourn.
Well, I would say one last thing.
Oh, yeah, Dave.
I was very, very, and still am impressed with your knowledge of what's going on at the jail. You've done your homework.
An hour and a half helped.
Yeah, I know. But even some people have help and it just goes right over their head. And as to the pay scale for jailers, I am fully supportive of anything that can improve their financial well-being at the jail, because you get what you pay for. But having said all of that, you're the star of the show today, and thank you.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, before we adjourn, I would just like to say, well, you were sorely missed last Thursday day when we voted on the increase, so maybe we can figure out how to get it back.
You got a good point, and I give you permission to go back and check it again. I move we adjourn.
We said before we adjourn. I'll make the motion that we adjourn. Is there a second? Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We adjourn.